So StartX was started by a group of student founders at Stanford.
What is the secret juice again with the StartX? Why is it can be copied?
Be comfortable. This is the space where I can be myself. I can learn. I can share anything and kind of get that.
So in order to apply, any Kazakh founder needs to go to the Stanford.
So we have 16 unicorns that have come out of StartX. Over 100 StartX companies have had a successful exit. There's a lot of pride being a Kazakh.
Hello guys, my name is Alim. Welcome to MOST Startup Media. This is the podcast with our great international guest. Just briefly, MOST Startup Media, it's a new platform where we talk about startups, VCs, about the entrepreneurs and about their stories. We plan to invite so many great people that we meet, and I personally meet a lot of entrepreneurs that I hear their stories I would love to share all with you. And today we have our special guest, Darsh Mann. He's a business development specialist and an expert and investor from StartX. And StartX is a top accelerator with many unicorns already from Stanford. Welcome to Kazakhstan. I know that's your first time.
Thank you, Alim.
So how do you feel?
I feel great. So I've been here for a week, and I had no idea what to expect, but it's a great place. So I started with Nur Sultan, saw the great university, the Nazarbayev University. I met founders. I see the energy and the scale, and yes, there are great things to happen here for what exists here.
Cool. Have you heard actually about Kazakhstan before? No?
Yes, I had heard only.
Okay.
But yes, at Stanford, I've formed a close friendship with somebody who's from Kazakhstan,
Okay.
and we have been working closely with the Kazakhstan ecosystem. So it started with working with the San Francisco office of the Kazakh government. We had the general counsel. We had the ambassador to US. They came to StartX last year, and since then you were there at the YPO event. We had the JAS Ventures team there in May. So it's a relationship which has slowly been building.
Cool. Okay, so you said you are here for 1 week, and from Nur Sultan you came to Almaty. But so, what are your plans for this region? What is the reason you're exploring, or you have some kind of plans for that we would love to know? Since it will be good to know. Yeah, since StartX that we're gonna talk a little bit later.
Yes.
It's one of the top one. So, what are your plans?
So StartX is a community of entrepreneurs from the Stanford ecosystem, and my reason for the visit is to explore a partnership with Nazarbayev University, a similar university in this ecosystem, and JAS Ventures. So the broad plan is to, one, support the different incubators here, build a similar community as we have built at StartX in Stanford, one. And second is to support the startups coming out. So help them with scaling to markets like US, help them with the mentor network, even investors, see how we can increase their impact by taking them to wider markets.
Okay, cool, interesting. Yeah, I know that you had a meeting yesterday with actually some incubators, accelerators. Heard a lot of positive feedback, a lot of insights. But yeah, one of the actually audience that we are targeting, it's entrepreneurs and startups. And we also would love to hear your story, not about even StartX and Stanford now. As I know, when I did my homework, just before the interview, you have been working in banking, financial institutions in this field for more than 10 years.
Yes.
And can you share your story, your entrepreneurial journey, before coming back to StartX?
Sure. So for me, yes, you're spot on with the research. So I was in banking for over 10 years, and so I spent about some time in India. Then I went to Africa. I lived in Kenya, Botswana, very interesting places. Spent 6 years in South Africa, and I was kind of enjoying the good life of banking and Africa. Absolutely great place. And I think somewhere I had this urge to say, I want to disrupt myself in a way that and kind of explore something different. So from there, I got admitted into the Stanford GSP School of Business 1 year Sloan Fellow program. So that gave me like a platform to come to Silicon Valley, study at 1 year at Stanford, and the whole thesis was to get closer to the startup ecosystem and see what that entails. So from there, I got into StartX, and at StartX for the first 1 year, my role was internal as chief of staff, trying to work out the internal processes. And for the last year or so, I've been looking at the external business development. And the focus is that how can this ecosystem, how can this community help different entities? So we work with corporate partners. These are companies who want to drive their innovation through these startups in the Silicon Valley ecosystem. We work with our resource partners. These are companies like AWS, SPB, who want to access this pool of startups to position their products and services. So we have a whole stack of services which any founder needs. And as I come here, I think part of the reason is also that how can we build a similar stack of those services for startups here in this ecosystem?
Okay. It's good, but you actually jumped into StartX. But
yes.
I'm more interested with your story in Kenya, you said?
Yes.
So you started with a corporate?
Yes.
Or you actually started, as a, taking the risk and started as an entrepreneur? Or you started actually first as a corporate?
So in Africa, I was not an entrepreneur.
Okay.
So I was in banking, and I was looking at the digitization side of the business, also seeing how the small entrepreneurs are, especially in Africa, in Kenya, are using technology to leapfrog the lack of infrastructure they have. Whether examples like M-Pesa, and even the whole mobile focused change, which has happened in Africa. So yes, so I have been seeing that closely, being there as part of a large bank. So I was part of Barclays, which used to be in 12 markets across Africa. And so from there it was more like how to just change the whole setting and get into something that's different, something that's very very scrappy, very startup-y. And that's how the change happened to A, come to Stanford, and then B, come to StartX after that.
Yeah, I know even several funds who actually searching and scouting for, I think it's happening for many years in African continent, let's say, for tech solutions, especially in fintech.
Yes.
Since when you have this, as my understanding, not so good infrastructure, let's say, entrepreneurs creating pretty brilliant solutions, even like a payment through SMS or something.
Yes.
And the funds comes and just scale it to developed markets. Can you share your thoughts on that? This is how it works, or?
So yes, there are examples now, especially in Nigeria. There are companies which are, you're right, in payments, in peer-to-peer transfers. We have many companies that have come up, but I would still say that the amount of funding that is going into Africa is still very low. And I think there are many business models which are a copy of the models that work here. Like for examples, we have the buy now pay later apps that work in the US now. So I know founders who have replicated the same model for the African market. So companies like Affirm, Klarna, their replicas have come up, and they're doing really well in markets like South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria. And I think that's one. Besides that, there's a lot of focus, as you just said, on payments, on see how companies can build. So it starts with identity, how to get their identity onto their mobiles, and then use that information to drive a lot of changes. So at Stanford, I was working on a project specifically on blockchain, where we were looking at how different companies are using blockchain for social good. So we did look at many projects in Africa where they're using blockchain to establish the identity of the person, which then becomes their passport to access so many other services. Like the last World Bank report did say that on financial inclusions, said that most of the 2 billion people who are who are not being serviced, who are outside the traditional banking system are based in Africa. So there are many initiatives that are actually working with the unbanked set of people there.
I think the percentage is huge of unbanked, right?
Yes.
The same in Southeast Asia countries, emerging markets, let's say. Yeah. Okay. Good. So you worked there. What was next? You actually moved to US to, as I said, for studies, right?
Yes. So so from there I left Africa and I moved with family, relocated the whole thing, came to Stanford, and then became a student. So
How old were you? What was your age?
So when I came in, my age was 39, slightly under
39?
Under 40. Yeah. So it was great to get on a bike in the morning. So I would have my kids go on their bikes to one side, and I would kind of go on the other side. That was a great year. Lived on campus. Great networking for myself, my partner, and for the kids. So I think that's been a fairly immersive experience for all of us in the family. And then from there on, so I finished my course and then just started with StartX, and that's when the whole COVID thing happened alongside. So in my case, I got interviewed in person, but my job for first 2 years was all virtual, including the onboarding.
Okay. And so you finished your studies and actually started
to
collaborate with
yes.
StartX. Okay, great. Yeah, so we know this. I actually really like your space and the community when I was in May.
Yes.
Very
scrappy.
No, this is I think one of my questions actually about that, but ask it next. But the idea was, maybe scrappy is for you, but it's totally fine. You didn't see our space in Almaty. It was also, but it's all about content and community.
Yes.
I really like the entrepreneurs you gathered on the stage, so they shared. It was like 1 hour was enough. A lot of insights. That's what kind of feedback we get with our colleagues afterwards when we reflected internally. But it's good that we see now the results, what StartX is doing. But can you share the story? I mean, how it started actually in Stanford, why, and who's the team today?
So StartX was started by a group of student founders at Stanford. So the chairman of the founding team consisted of Cameroon, who's now the chairman of the board for StartX. So it was started on the Stanford campus about 10 years ago, 2010. And so it was on campus. It was more like a student body to help the founders coming out of the Stanford ecosystem. So that was for the first 2-3 years. And then post that, it just moved outside the Stanford campus. So we are now a 5-minute bike ride from the center of campus. And the whole idea is that we do get a lot of students who come in and attend the different programs. We also run a student residence program. So the idea is to stay very close to the Stanford campus. So we run 3 cohorts a year, and in each cohort we get about 30 to 40 companies who get into the program. And then so we kind of and over this time we have had 900 plus companies who've gone through the program. We have had 2,000 plus founders. We have a pool of mentors network. We have our partners, corporate and community partners. So that forms the essence of what StartX is, which is the community that you would have seen the founders And what I see very different is that we are a purist community, and the way founders engage, interact with StartX is very different from how they would do it with any other entity. Also for the fact that we don't sit on their cap table. Like we're not an investor. We are
no equity.
Yes, we are a non-profit. We do not take any equity, and we remain a safe space for the founder to share their vulnerabilities, be comfortable. This is the space where I can be myself. I can learn. I can share anything and kind of get that required feedback. So that's how StartX has evolved. And in terms of success, we have we share the numbers. So we've had 16 unicorns that have
16.
16.
16. Okay.
Yes, it's not 60 yet. So we have 16 unicorns that have come out of StartX, and over 90% of our companies that have been through the program are either scaling or they've had a successful exit. So over 100 StartX companies have had a successful exit where there's been a sale out there. And I think if we're just comparing, so if you place 16 unicorns, like there are only 6 countries in the world which have done more than 16 unicorns. Yes. So yes,
the venture funds like you, right?
Sorry?
The venture funds like you.
Yes, venture funds like us, but then we also kind of, to respect the safe space, to respect the maintaining that confidentiality. Like, so if you are a StartX mentor or you're providing advice, we kind of so our mentors do not invest in the company because we want to keep that pure relationship for our founders. So yes, and we have products that work specifically with the venture, and which is the investment mode we run, where StartX companies get to participate, and we invite all the venture funds to invest in StartX companies.
Okay. Yeah, I remember you actually you gave the presentation when I was in your space. Like you have 3 or 4 verticals, let's say.
Yes.
How you create this? Yeah, I call it environment. You call it space, safe space. Yeah. So it's interesting. The StartX model is basically interesting. You are not taking equity.
Mm-hmm.
So what will be in this case? Like it's good to have 16 unicorns. What would be the best case of, or how you measure your performance? What is the KPIs you set as a StartX for yourself? Is it the number of unicorns or what else? For sure, it's hard to measure.
Great, and I think for us, so StartX is first a community. So, and how we measure is that one is that how engaged is the community. Like when I say engagement, so all our processes, whether it's admissions into StartX, whether it's running some of the key programmatic capabilities, they are run by our community. So, so what we measure is that how engaged is the community with StartX? How is the community growing? How is the community, and what feedback is the community giving to StartX? So that remains one metric. And we are also a founder-first institution, so we gather feedback from founders in each cohort on what was their experience. Did we add value? How did we add value to their learning goals and their journey? So I think that remains the top like KPI which the board tracks. But beyond that is running an institution. So we have a focus on revenues. Like so, I run the partnership side with the different partners. We also get some money from some of the endowment, which so when these founders grow big, they start writing checks to StartX. So we also have that. So I think yes, but those metrics sit below. The focus is on the community and the founders, which remain the essence of StartX.
Can you say like we have such a number as a community?
Yes.
Can you? I mean, you specify the number.
So we have 2,000 plus founders.
Okay.
And I would say there's easily another 500 or so mentors, right? So, so our goal is that how engaged is this community? So every year, like we run 3 cohorts. At the end of the cohort, we have an event called the VIP night, where it's an invite-only closed-door event where it's more like a graduation ceremony for the cohort, where each founder will pitch their company, not for investing, but more for engaging the community. So we call all the community members. Some of them are like, they've probably done 3-4 startups. Some of them are now investors. So, and this is more like we welcome the new cohort into the community. And in fact, the next VIP night for the summer cohort is actually next week. So I need to get back in time for that. So events like these bring together the community, and they they create this virtuous cycle for founders to first come in, learn from some of the founders who have done similar things before. Let's say who built 2-3 startups, are now mentors, and then later on, 5-10 years down the line, when these founders have built their startups, sold their startups, then they kind of start the cycle of giving back to the community. So it's a fairly, and we were investing for some years through the Stanford endowment, but I think we have moved away from that. We want to be a pure community support for founders at StartX.
Okay, cool, interesting. How the cohort looks like? You do 3 programs, right?
Yes.
For like 3 months. Is it kind of classical?
Yes. So it's a 12-week program from the orientation to the finish, and then ending in the VIP night. And so what we don't do is classroom teaching, because also the founders that we get, most of them are fine with the basics. So we start with their learning goals. We understand that what is it that each founder is wants to know, and this is perhaps different for each founder who comes. Yeah. Also, we are a stage agnostic program, which means we get companies from pre-seed, seed to Series A+, as well as we are a sector agnostic program. So we get about 1/3 of our companies in med. So we also have a lab in the office. It's a wet lab which supports research in different areas. So and I think because it's a fairly heterogeneous mix of founders, we create these subgroups of, it could either be based on your vertical, your sector, and then within that also your learning goal. So let's say you're interested in fundraising. Some of it will be common, which in a sector agnostically each founder wants to learn. But let's say you want to scale with the hospital networks in the US, then that'll be a separate group that the founder will join basis his or her needs. So we create these small groups and put them in touch with peers. The peer learning is probably the best value the founders get. One, plus we also bring in some external mentors. We create products like the board of advisors for them. Fairly experienced people in the same industry who come and guide that company in terms of what they want to do next. So our learning is not, it's not prescriptive, it's not fixed. It is very focused on each founder's specific needs. And it's based on their learning goals, and it's focused on resources through our partners. It's focused on education, it's focused on community and on mentorship. So those are the 4 verticals that we focus on as we work with the founders in their journeys.
Okay, so does it mean that only the founders from Stanford can come?
That's primarily correct. So we focus on founders from the Stanford ecosystem, and our application count, over 90% of applications come from founders with a Stanford affiliation, and so in that, our admission success rate is sub 10%.
Okay. So in order to apply, any Kazakh founder needs to go to the Stanford, do the startup and apply for startup.
As of today, yes, and I think that's what we want to change. So I'm here in connecting with the Nazarbayev University, and so the idea of this partnership is that, can we create an opportunity for some of the founders here, local Kazakh founders, to be able to apply to the program at StartX?
Yeah, okay.
Without
it will be good. It will be good. No.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a brilliant story. I mean, it's all about our market, emerging markets. I don't want to say impossible, but it's really hard to build big companies here.
Yeah.
Sure, it's all about global markets, big markets. Okay. Can you share one of the examples of the startups that, I don't know, maybe look like weird? I mean, in terms of something, I don't know, that applied for your for your batch. And which one, like, when you say the best case of the startup you saw, about the story, I mean, about the founder, something that you remember when you pitch the StartX, can you just give any example of the team that you work with?
So I can speak of a founder. So his company is named Enya, ENYA.ai. And in fact, the founder, Alan Chu, happens to be my senior, also from the Stanford GSP Sloan Fellow Program. And so they applied to StartX with a company which was working on data, how to manage data, especially in the COVID times, because like you want to have data on who's coming to the office. So there was a lot of data aggregation happening there. So this is what they were doing 3 years ago as the founding team, and they applied to the program. So they built on that data set, and from there they were able to pivot to the whole blockchain world, right? Based on the data, they were even able to acquire tokens. They now have tokens. It's called Boba, and from there, like, they were able to raise money. So earlier this year, in the new pivot, in the new avatar, they are now a unicorn. So
in 3 years.
In
3 years.
2 years. In 2 years, like so, and like so and this is the StartX focus. Like, we don't, in our judging criteria, we do not focus on the idea, because we believe that we focus on the founding team, we focus on team dynamics, we focus on passion and execution, we focus on ability to execute more than the idea, because what we believe is that idea is not a fixed constant. Because if today a founder is working on something, pivoting is a very natural part of a startup progression. So, but again, when anybody wears a sort of an investing hat or VC hat, then you want to focus on what's your total market size, how much market share you can get. So we don't. That's not the focus of. But yes, we want to get founders who, as individuals, have the best chance of success, and also are able to work together as a team. So, and like what I quoted is an example of founders coming to StartX with a completely different product, pivoting to something very different in a span of 2 years and making it a unicorn.
I recently heard a term. Actually, your story is just a great example of that. Investable brains.
Yes.
We are looking for investable brains. Maybe too strict and too direct. Yeah, you just find the brain and just creating the environment that they do cool stuff. Yes, pivoting is all the way.
Yeah. Precisely. And you're right. Once you look at that construct, then idea is probably not even a consideration. Like, whatever problem you're working on, or you pivot, but you will get to something which is I also think that the market has been so some sectors obviously have had a very big tailwind. Blockchain, Web3 has had. So some of the big names that came through StartX, one is OpenSea and the other one is Alchemy. And both of them are now valued as decacorns, over $10 billion valuation. So yes, and each of their story is very interesting. Like, even Alchemy is not it's a fairly recent company. And in the last probably 3.5 years, they've only set themselves up for creating the infrastructure for Ethereum, for Web3. And now they're very big.
Okay. I'm curious, what is the average age of the founder that you see? Since why I'm asking, as an example, in our case, in most, I don't know about other accelerators, but in incubator, it's around 30. But as I see as an investor, as a fund, when we invest, the average is like 36, 37. But How about StartX?
So I think the average hides a lot of the demographic detail.
Yeah.
Within StartX program, we have different groups. So we have the student and resident groups that focuses on the current students of Stanford. Like obviously their age is early 20s, to be frank. That's the student program. We also have a professor in residence, probably be 45, 50. And then we have a med track. We have if we club all of them together, probably it'll come to a number in 30s. Mm-hmm. But then I think I think our focus is more on the subgroups. And what we find is that on the med side, the age is usually slightly higher because it has a longer, the research is a longer game compared to some of the, like if you look at you come out of college 2 years later, you're building a B2B SaaS company or you're building a fintech. That's one track. So typical age for them will be, you're right, around the 30-ish mark, 25, 30. But then that's one subgroup. We also get founders who are building their second, third, fourth company. And yeah, for them, it'll probably be a few years added to them. But yeah, it's a mix. But overall, I think I agree with you. It's probably in the early 30s number as an average.
Okay. Good. It's good confirmation for us. I mean,
that's fine.
It's close to this. Okay. So, many universities in the US, they also have their own accelerators, incubators, different social entrepreneurship and stuff. You partially, I think, covered it, but what is the secret juice again with the StartX? Why can be copied? Why it's not such a kind of a great performances in other cases and other universities, other places? What is the secret sauce? Is it about still community or it is something else?
So I think you ask a great question. So just going back to StartX, we have helped, we have been helping different institutions, different university affiliated programs, accelerators, as StartX. So we have done it with so many different universities within the US. And I think to your question, what I see is that most of these university accelerators, they operate with a VC arm. So, and once that happens, the focus shifts. So and once you start measuring the return on the VC arm, very quickly you become a VC arm. And that's what we see with many of the similar programs. What happens is that the focus on community gets, it just shifts. Like for example, if I wear the VC hat, and this happens with so many accelerators, like you admit a certain number of companies, let's say large cohorts, and then your focus is on picking the winner because you want to see that valuation lift, right? And
traction.
Yes, and what you normally see is that a big cohort, and then from there maybe 5 or 10 companies, which becomes your focus. And I think how StartX is truly different is that we don't care about your valuation, right? Whether you become a unicorn or you don't, StartX will treat you equally. We have no incentive for treating somebody in a more elevated way than somebody else. Yeah. Like for us, it's one level playing field community. And I think that being the ethos of what we build, our primary metrics, how we engage the community, has helped build a strong community together. So I wouldn't say that's the only way, but and community takes time, right? Community is a process which, and there's also not one way of building a community, right? So yes, I think probably the answers are there in terms of our focus, how we approach this from a community in its purest sense, which gets us here. I think to the last part of your question, yes, there is an opportunity to create more communities in a much wider scale, and that's why my purpose for the visit and the goal to engage this is also to see how we can support build a similar community here in Kazakhstan to support the startups?
Actually, it was my next question. Since you've traveled a lot, you visit a lot of countries, you lived in different countries, and especially, I think what you just said is all about mindset, about this giving back or giving first culture. After exploring what you saw here in Kazakhstan, let's say, I don't want to say that it can be copied, but
yes.
Can it be, or what should be done here? I mean, in terms of, can we create something like this here in an emerging market like Kazakhstan, or even any Central Asia country? What do you think?
So I think the answer is yes, with context. So I would say that when I look at the startup, there were many pitches that were made. It has the basic construct of a founder who's energized, nice pitch deck, talking to all the right things, the team, the problem, how they're building. And I think that the basics exist. What probably lacks is scale and exposure, right? Those are the ones which are the limiting factors. And so the whole idea of this engagement is to see how we can support that. And also, so there are two parts of it, right? Like one is to build a strong ecosystem here, build a strong community here, and where we want to help with our skills around admissions, programmatic, building a community. I think that's for the ecosystem. The bigger value is for the startup, how we can help them get exposure, get scaled, get access to so many other groups that any founder or startup needs to succeed. So yes, with context.
Okay. But so what in general you think about the actual ecosystem? I hope that you had a chance, I think you get a chance to meet maybe some startups here. I'm pretty sure that maybe mostly from perspective of developed markets, early stage, you are here in a JAS Coworking. So I mean, in general, kind of 3-4 points that you can say that this is a characteristic I see now, and what maybe should be done with that.
Yes. So I think so the first one, the startup that I saw was the wide difference in valuation. So like in the US, your valuation starts at $10 million, right? Like two founders get together, they have an idea, the base is $10 million. But when I'm here, I see startups who have been working for many years. They have revenues, they have a full business model deployed, and they are still like a fraction of the 10 million in valuation, right? So, and that's the opportunity of scaling exposure, taking them there and kind of expanding. So I think, so in essence, that remains the core of what is the change that we need to drive. Now, I think the basic skills are there. Even like this, so Kazakhstan has a strong depth in education. So there are universities in Almaty. So I was because this is with the Nazarbayev University. That's the so I was there, saw the so that forms the basis to build a strong resource of young people who have the skills to be entrepreneurs. And I think the next probably the next support that we need to build into the ecosystem is how do we help them scale beyond the Kazakh market into the Central Asia, wider Asia, and then places like Europe and US, and that's what the broad opportunity lies for startups.
Yeah, actually, my last question. I think this is your last day here, right?
Yes.
In terms of this trip. So what will be your maybe main ideas, takeaways from here, from the Kazakhstan to StartX community when you come back? What you're gonna share?
So I think the prime idea is that this part of the world, Central Asia, and Kazakhstan being a part of it, it's not very visible to the Western world, right? So unless you come here, experience it firsthand, it's really difficult to even imagine what's happening here. Okay. So there is there is work to be done on the visibility side. How can we make the opportunity and also what's happening here more visible to the larger world? I think that's that's the first part that I take away, right? And that applies to the StartX community and beyond, in terms of saying, I was in Kazakhstan, and what a great place it is in terms of having all the right checks to be a strong ecosystem. So that's one. The second thing is also like as a place, as a even the Kazakh cuisine, the food, amazing. So like unless you come here, you don't experience that. And I think that's what I take away. And even the like every person that I met there, there's a lot of pride in being a Kazakh. So and I see it in every person here in whatever they're doing. So that's very powerful.
Yeah. So thanks a lot, Darsh, for the talk, for the discussion. For me, it was really insightful. I really get a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks, guys. It was Darsh from StartX Business Development, the investor, the entrepreneur, and I get a lot of pleasure to talk to him. And see you on the next podcast. Bye.
Thank you, Alim.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.